Hello, LinkedIn, and now, of course, Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live. This is our weekly episode, and glad to have you join us. Just a reminder to, as you join, type in comments as to where you are joining from, so that we know you're there and where from. And then also, as we go along, please feel free to offer questions and comments through the comments section and join in, get engaged. And just a reminder that for Wisdom Seeker Live, that our vantage point on what it means to gain wisdom. It is a journey. It's a 3-step process that happens over and over again, and that is that you first gain knowledge, and that's facts, figures, information we learn. Now with technology, it has to do with gaining things through Google and Siri and all of those. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people stop. But part of what we want you to do is to be able to move beyond that and benefit from gaining wisdom. And welcome, Muhammad. Glad to have you from Saudi Arabia. And so the second step in this journey towards wisdom is to gain understanding. And understanding is our experience when we take what we have gained knowledge-wise and begin to use it and apply it in our lives. That is gaining experience, or in other words, understanding. And it's a step further in the journey towards gaining wisdom. And then the last step in that process is where we begin to take our knowledge and our understanding and see it in a much broader sense, or a bigger perspective, and especially outside of ourselves, so that we can then take into account what we do with our knowledge and understanding in light of other people. And for those of us that are spiritually oriented, our ultimate goal is to try and see and use our knowledge and understanding and our world from God's eyes, and be able to apply and make decisions and have insights based on God's perspective in our life. And so that's our journey as we are part of Wisdom Seeker Live. And again, glad to have everyone, and look forward to about an hour of sharing and growing. And I'm very blessed today, very fortunate to have someone that is a friend, a longtime family friend, and my former pastor. And he has agreed to come on and share a little bit about what he does and how he's walked and grown. So I want you all to welcome aboard my friend, Mike Lynch. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I am good. I'm blessed, and especially glad to have you with us this morning, and hope that we can share a little time here, learn some wisdom from you, as well as be able to share with others some wisdom, and more importantly, as the saying goes, not just give them fish, but maybe teach them how to fish a little bit.
That's right.
So what I'd like you to do, Mike, if you don't mind, is just tell a little bit about your story and maybe how you have journeyed into gaining some wisdom. I know you have a lot to offer because of your experience. So if you don't mind, share a bit about your experience.
That's good, Kevin. Well, number one, it's an honor to be on here. It's an honor to connect with you. I adore your family. Your mom is one of our patriarchs. She's the matriarch here at North Star. I mean, she's been around since the very beginning, and we just are so indebted to your family for what y'all meant to us. And I even think about where you're at in your journey in that word wisdom, and how much wisdom that you were able to glean from your mom and your dad, who had a deep faith, and had a deep faith that transferred over to your life and your brother's lives and your sister's lives. And I look back at my journey, and you don't know what you don't know. And you walk and you lead and you do, and wisdom is learned, and wisdom is gained, and wisdom is sought for. I mean, it's one of those things that I think I look back, my parents were incredible people who passed down so much to us. But also in that process, they taught us how to go find it, and they taught us where to look. And then God brings those people in your life, like my pastor Ike and my youth pastor, who pushed me in that direction of being able to take God's word and learn that everything God wanted me to know was in there. And I had to take a shovel, and I had to go dig a little bit, and I had to go look a little bit. And so, I look back at that journey, Kevin. Gosh, I've been in ministry over 30 years now, been married almost 30 years. And I look back at who I am today, and I've learned a lot. But the beauty of wisdom is you never stop learning it, and you never stop growing. And through people, and through study, and through life, you always have the ability to add more. And so I think the phrase wisdom seeker is a great phrase, because you should always be. I think the day you stop seeking wisdom, pride will cause you to fall. And so, that's where I'm at in my journey.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I am blessed to have a mom and dad that did make an effort to help us look at things in a bigger light, and mom that continues with us and helps us keep it in perspective. And one of the things that I like to key in on is, and what I share a lot about, is what you just said, seeking. Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while. So we can gain wisdom accidentally unless we're just completely out of it. So it doesn't require seeking, but if we're going to grow in wisdom and gain the benefit from wisdom, it's something that we should actively seek.
That's right.
And there are a lot of different aspects to it. You mentioned the Bible, and it is true. I've shared with people on this program that even if you don't necessarily ascribe to the tenets of the Bible, it is a good place to go to find wisdom about many things, especially about life.
Yep.
And when we do that, we gain insights. And then, of course, talking about the legacy of our parents, that another way to seek wisdom is seek out wise people and spend time with them. And now I know in your role as pastor and all that you do, because I know you do more than just pastor. And so tell me about maybe some of the times or people that have come into your life that have especially helped you find wisdom, in either in general or in specific cases.
Kevin, I think in life, we have the ability to learn from everybody we meet. And I think if our hearts are open and we are walking with a humble heart, I think everybody has something to teach us. I don't think anybody enters our life by accident. And so I look back at my journey, and you see strategic placements of the right people at the right time in the right season. So whether it's in high school, and it was my youth pastor who poured into us and, man, just gave us wisdom about how to journey through life as a student. and get through it. And then I go off to college and I play for a gentleman. I played baseball for a gentleman named Bobby Richardson, a legendary New York Yankee. And Coach Richardson passes on wisdom, and not just in the game of baseball, but in life. And they begin to talk to us about one day when we get married, and one day when we're out on our own working, and life after baseball's over, and things we need to know. And I had a pitching coach there that was always talking, not just about pitching, but he was talking about life. And he was talking about one day that you're going to use these things about adversity and how to overcome hardships. And you're going to use this. And then I go to my first church, and God connects our lives with a couple named Eddie and Ludell Bishop. And Eddie and Ludell became those life mentors for Ann and I, my wife and I. And we watched how they parented. We watched how they built a marriage together. And and what I have found, Kevin, is so interesting. The people that want to share wisdom with me typically are just sharing their thoughts, but the people you see things in and you ask questions of normally have the best wisdom. And so, in fact, I was at a conference last week, or doing a video for a conference, and I challenged those guys at this conference to always have someone in front of you you're learning from. Always have someone beside you on the journey you're gleaning from, because you're at the same place in the race. And then always have somebody behind you that you're able to take what God's done for you and what you've learned. And then when they need it, you aren't selfish with it. And because somebody helped you get where you were, and then you pass it on. And then I look at my life now, and I have so many people, whether it's business leaders in our community, a group of leaders that we get to sit down and I get to lead here. And man, and they think I'm leading them, and I'm really not. I'm learning from them and adding it to my tool bag. And and then a couple of years ago, back in 2017, I started a podcast called the Lynch with a Leader podcast, where I sit down with great leaders and just pick their brains about how they got where they are. And man, every time I get off an episode, I'm better for it, because God uses their story to benefit my story. So you look back and you have so many people that helped you get where you are. You didn't get where you are by accident. And so I am so blessed and so thankful for the people that have come into my life.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned is, I teach a lot about servant leadership. And one of the three core components that I share in regards to that is humility. And a key to being able to gain wisdom is to remind ourselves of just what you were saying, that, we didn't get here by ourselves. We can't go further by ourselves. That's right. It's part of design. Again, one of the concepts that I teach is what I call design, passion, and purpose. And I believe very much that we have a design. We're not accidents, cosmic mistakes, or cosmic happenstance. And so as we stay humble, choose to be humble, and then we are more open to finding wisdom.
That's right.
What's real interesting is that a lot of times if we are a wisdom seeker, we will find wisdom even when the people or circumstances weren't intended per se to help us find wisdom, because it's part of God's design.
That's right.
That we find wisdom. And you mentioned him bringing people into our lives. He'll bring circumstances in order to help us gain that wisdom, because he promises it.
That's right.
And so, it's, I tell people, some people say, well, I'm not smart enough to become wise. I say, well, it's all right. God uses the simpler things, or base things in life. And in fact, we in terms of gaining wisdom, God even used a donkey one time
That's right.
to help. So,
That's right.
if God can use a donkey to help someone gain a little wisdom, I'm hopeful that He can use me a little bit
That's right.
along the way. And so, tell me some. I know you're a very intentional person. It's already been evidenced by your looking for people to pour into your life, and you and others. Tell us a bit about some of the things that you're intentional in doing to help grow in wisdom.
Yeah. Well, I remember years ago, and I believe I heard John Maxwell say it, and I'm sure it was said by somebody prior to John, but you will be as good and go as far as the people you meet in the books you read. And so I think for all of us, we have the ability to meet people, and whether it's in our work environment or in our neighborhoods or through civic organizations or business that we're involved in, we have the ability to meet people. And I think the people that are wisdom seekers learn to ask great questions. Last year, I talked to a gentleman on my podcast, and he said, and this is something that was really good for me, Kevin, because I'm a talker. And so this is something I struggle with sometimes. He said, when you ask someone a question, are you interested or are you trying to be interesting? So if I'm interested, I have a follow-up question. If I just want to be interesting, I'm already got my response to the question. And he said, wisdom is normally found with the follow-up question. So when you ask them something and you dive a little deeper on it. And so I do believe in that word you use, intentionality is everything. When the books that we read, are we intentionally reading things that are going to add value to our lives? Are we meeting people with the thought, man, there's something, and listen, you know this as well as I do, degrees have nothing to do with wisdom. No. So sometimes that farmer or that retired person at that assisted living has more wisdom than the guy with 5 earned degrees. They have a lot of knowledge, but they don't have a lot of wisdom. And so intentionality. And so for me, I lead a couple groups, and so I use early mornings to meet with people. And instead of meeting with one, I'll meet with 8 or 10, and we'll read a book together. And I've got a new one or another one starting tomorrow. So I've got 4 or 5 leaders. These are groups of leaders that I meet with, and we read a book together. And I don't teach them the book. We talk about what we learned. And man, as you begin to do that, all of a sudden you begin to get gleanings from their journey. Tomorrow, I'll be with about 10 police chiefs, and we're reading a spiritual leadership book together. Well, I don't have any time in the police world, but I'll tell you what, man, these guys are on the front lines every day, and there is so much wisdom they've got that I can get if I'll be intentional enough to set up the time to meet with them. And so for me, your schedule will get away from you, and whatever. So, and I think this is true in all your lives, and I'm sure your listeners are this way. Whatever gets scheduled gets done, right? Yeah. If it's not on the calendar, this conversation wouldn't happen if you didn't set it up and put it on the calendar. We would have said, hey, we need to, and this ought to be fun. And but what gets scheduled gets done. And so if wisdom is important to us, then we are going to set aside time in our lives to take that person to lunch, to go by their office, to say, hey, can I come by and sit on your front porch and ask you some questions? And maybe it's about marriage. Maybe you're going, hey, I want to build a great marriage. Well, don't just go buy a good book, which is great, and you'll learn a lot from the book, but find somebody who's been married 50 years and just say, can I come by and bring you some pie and sit at your kitchen table and pick your brain on what it took to get there? Yeah. That's wisdom, because you're seeking it, they're sharing it, and you may be surprised at what you learn. And so intentionality to me is everything. And I know this, not being intentional never adds value to my life. Right. Because I just get caught in the monotony of the day. I know what I know. I'm not reading. I'm not learning. I'm not looking. I'm not seeking. I'm just getting by. I'm on the treadmill of life. Well, the treadmill of life gets us nowhere. Right. So that's why intentionality is so big.
In fact, that treadmill is not even good for exercise.
No, it's not. And you get the scenery never changes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I was sharing with Mike before we came on is that, you know, when this program started, we started out with a 40-day challenge, and this challenge was to develop a pattern or a habit that's a lot about what Mike's talking about, and that is part of what happens to us in our lives, and something I had to really revisit at one point, and it's the concept of disconnecting from the noise in our life. It varies for many of us, and I can't speak, I avoid generalizations where I can, but for many of us, the noise that we get discouraged and defeated by so often is paying way too much attention to the news media and social media. And I know there's some irony there since we're on a social media platform, but so disconnecting, and that's a choice. That's something we have to do. And then the second step in that process was observe. You were saying be interested, check out what's going on around us, and check out what's going on inside of us, and really gauge where we're at. And then the third step in that process is to then watch for, look for, find the wisdom in what's going on around us, what we observe. And that is kind of what you described, and I really appreciate your sharing that. I want to welcome another guest, one of my regular connections, Rafia from Canada. Good morning, Rafia. Glad to have you with us, and appreciate you taking time to join Mike and I. So, Mike, I know you at least were, if not currently, chaplain for the Falcons.
That's correct. So I'm a visiting chaplain. I'll usually go to them 2 to 3 times a year. They have a main guy who's their coordinating chaplain, and then they'll bring in visiting folks to come and speak to the team. Yep, been doing that since 2008. So I'll be going on year 13. Yeah, wow. Pretty crazy.
Tell us a little bit. You know, everybody is always interested in hearing about the famous people and things. Tell us a little bit about some of those experiences.
Yeah, that's a really interesting deal. So when I started doing it, I'm a high school football chaplain on Friday nights, and then they do so the way NFL teams do it is they do it on Saturday night prior to the game on Sunday. You go to the hotel and they do all their meetings, and they have a mass for those that want to go to mass, and they have a chapel service for those that want to do that. And I noticed something really interesting one week, Kevin. I was speaking to the team on Friday night, a high school football team, about fear, and speaking to them about worries and anxiousness and how it robs our performance. And I asked them to name some of the things they worry about and some of the things that they fear. And that was on Friday night. These are 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. Then on Saturday night, I'm in an NFL hotel with guys that we all know their names, and we watch them on television. And I did the same lesson and asked the same fears, and they were all the same. The fear of failure, the fear of disappointing, the fear I'm not good enough, the fear of, and so what I learned very quickly is these people definitely have more dollar signs attached to their names, but they are the same people. They're just about 10 or 15 years older. And so I have learned that these guys are trying to be good husbands. They're trying to figure out when this career, most of them very short career, when it's over, what am I going to do? Is there a bigger purpose and plan for my life? Was I just put here to play football? Is that all I'm good for? Why is adversity? Why is this happening to me? Why did that injury? The same question we all ask of why questions. And so what I would tell you is they're just people, and they're guys who've been given a great ability that we all get to recognize. And it's amazing, But behind all that, they deal with the same stresses and stuff that we do. And theirs are just in the paper. And their mistakes aren't known by our board or the board. They're known by the hometown big city newspaper who put it out, that they had a domestic violence issue, or they had a drunk driving, or they had or whatever. And so I have genuinely loved getting to spend time with them, not just in that time there, but for many of them, not all of them, but for many of them, a phone call of just praying over them when they got traded and they had to move cities, or they got released and they're trying to figure out what are they going to do. All they do is play football. And so it's been very interesting, but inspiring. It's really inspiring for those of us that follow the Lord. If you're on this call and you follow the Lord and you're seeking his wisdom, to walk in there on the Saturday night before, for many of them, the NFC Championship game one year. And these guys have their Bibles out and they have their notes out, and they're genuinely trying to learn to be the person that God created them to be. It's really inspiring in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's rather interesting, because sometimes we think that or behave in such a way that people that are notable, that are well-known, whatever, somehow their life is different. And it really isn't.
No.
They may have more things, but on the other side, like you mentioned, they also have some different kind of pressures, because their life is so public quite often, even when they try not to be. And so I think about, some of the dumb things I've done, and how would I have liked it to read about it in the paper. Fortunately,
That's right.
I never caught the attention of anyone enough to ever be that notable to have my mistakes amplified any more than they would. So, the other thing that's, again, as you can see that from Mike's name on the screen, he's at North Star Church. He's a pastor. So sometimes people get a misunderstanding of what it's like to be a pastor. Some people say, oh, well, you get paid to make up stories, or, it's all easy or whatever. So tell us a little bit about the journey as a pastor. It's funny, because as I've started this, I've got some folks that now have follow this podcast and are starting to refer to me as pastor, and I'm going, oh me, I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
You don't want that, man. You don't want that. You need to run from that, Kevin. Run.
So tell us a little bit about your journey as a pastor.
Yeah. So I began in ministry right out of college. I was a student pastor from 91 to 96. Then in 97, Kevin was a part of this. We started this church called North Star. My pastor growing up, Ike, and I, and a group of people helped found this church and start that in 97. And then I was Ike's assistant. I was his two. And then in 03, Ike transitioned to a new role, and my role transitioned to be the lead. And so I've been doing the lead pastor, senior pastor, since 03. So I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not something everybody wants to do.
Okay.
But if you're called to do it, you can't imagine doing anything else.
Right.
And I absolutely love what I do. So you do work more than one day a week, which I have been asked that a couple times. So you only do Sundays. Is that right? So we're actually in the office. In fact, Sundays are about this big on what you do.
That's right.
You've been given the opportunity to lead people. And so that role in leadership is probably your biggest, you're leading a staff that work for us. So we have about 36 folks that work here out of our office. And so I help lead them. And then all the people that come to our church to provide counsel, to provide wisdom, to provide sometimes just a listening ear. I get to be with people, Kevin, on their best days, like I was this past Saturday when a precious little couple got married up in North Georgia. and I get to be with people on their worst days when they lose that loved one and they didn't see it coming. And so it is a privilege. It is an honor to get to be with people on both of those days.
Right.
And so why the Lord allowed me to be in something I enjoy so much and love so much, I don't know, but I'm sure thankful, because I could do a lot of other things, I think, and maybe, do okay at it, but I wouldn't do anything that I love doing like I love doing this. And truly, and this sounds crazy, I look forward to not only Sunday mornings, which when all our people gather, but I look forward to Monday mornings and starting that new week and getting after it. And because we believe, and I believe that it is a life-changing role that you get to be a part of, seeing people exchange a non-extraordinary life for an extraordinary life when they find that purpose. That old Mark Twain quote, there's two great days in our lives: the day we're born and the day we figure out why we're born. And I get to be a part of that, sometimes seeing them born in this world, but then I get to be a part of that, seeing that light bulb come on in that 25-year-old business leader or that 47-year-old dad or mom when they go, okay, I think I know why I'm here. And so, we all do the same things. I've got a calendar. I have meetings. I take people to lunch. I take phone calls after hours. I mean, all of the things we all do. Mine just happens to be within the confines of a church.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there are times that even in my own walk, I look at pastors and say, wow, get paid and you get to do this. And I realize that the reality is most pastors and church staff work as much or harder than many 9-to-5 jobs out there and so on. But one of the things that you've keyed in on and that I keep promoting and building for people to consider is to find out what their purpose is. Because whether it is doing tradesman work, whether it's being a doctor, whether it's being a teacher, when we can find our purpose and live it, and it becomes our vocation, that's really the optimal situation.
That's right.
What's the saying that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life?
That's right.
Back when I was teaching, I used to have students come to me, because part of being a teacher in a high school is also being a career counselor and a lot of other roles. But they would come to me and they'd say, well, is this job hard? In one case, I taught young people about the career in the masonry field. And a lot of people look at that and have a negative view. And I would tell them, I'd say, well, the funny thing about whatever we do, whether it's hard or not, is more determined not by what we do or how we do it, but whether it is part of what we're about. If it's a byproduct of who we are, then no, it's not hard, because it's part of our design and our purpose.
That's right.
And it's just an outflow. Whereas, unfortunately, I observe a lot of people in their lives now that they aren't living their purpose. They aren't doing their jobs based on that purpose and their design. And even the seemingly cushiest job, we have the picture of the corner office with the nice view and all that. There are a lot of people sitting in those offices and they're making all kind of money, but they are miserable. They are dissatisfied. They are frustrated. Any of a number of descriptions, because that's not who and what they are designed for. And one of the things, I don't know how much you've seen of my presence on LinkedIn, but I am going to in May roll out a course that I am building on finding potential.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be to help people begin to, in order to truly reach our potential, the sooner we understand, again, the way I phrase it is our design, how we're made. God made us. And when we get in on that and begin to understand that, and then we start based on that design, finding a purpose, which is an outlet or an output of that design. And one of the ways that helps us is the third part of that is our passion. God didn't give us a passion to frustrate us. Now, I do caution people that if you go solely on passion, you can get misguided, because passions can get twisted around by the world, by circumstances. But when you put all of those together, then you begin to understand your direction. And then from there, you can build and start moving towards our potential. God gives us each a potential to be and accomplish things in our life. And I think the biblical term for that's abundance. And so we have that. A lot of people, though, never really find it. And there are different aspects to it. And so anyway, we're going to be doing that.
That's great.
And hopefully help some people begin to find direction and move forward. You mentioned something that you were talking about, really choosing an intentionality in listening. Now, see, I'm like you. I sometimes run my mouth too much, and people around me know that. And my mom will probably confirm that that's a true. But what I have in the last few years that I've really had to become intentional about is active listening. And I know there are some things I do that suit me, but tell us a bit about how you, some of the tricks, tips, concepts you use to be an active listener.
I would say it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's follow-up questions. So if I'm truly interested, I become a very good listener because I'm looking for what I'm going to ask next. If I'm trying to be interesting, which I do, I will then be formulating my response to their story. And so I know for me, Kevin, hosting a podcast has helped my listening because you have your set of questions that I'm going to ask this person, but normally the best questions aren't on the list. They're the follow-up to something they've said. And we go down that rabbit trail and we chase it. And so listening is a skill. And, we always have heard God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And it's true, but I think listening is something we can all work on. I mean, think of our marriages. What gets better in marriage if we listen? Well, everything, because we hear what's being said. And then sometimes when we're listening, we hear what's being not said. Right. And we notice, well, that's odd. I mean, you've been married a long time. I've been married a long time. And, it's easier after almost 30 years and it's harder after 30 years. And so it's harder to be interested because you know each other so well. And so, but listening, to me, listening is the key to leadership. I think if you're a great listener, you know how to lead people. They're giving you their cues about what they love, what they need, what they're missing if you listen. And so listening is something you never master. I think you'll be using it the rest of your life. As long as God's got you here on this earth, listening is something you'll always be working at and working on because you always have the ability to learn. You never arrive with knowledge and wisdom. You just always are seeking and growing.
Right. Yeah, that's the beauty of seeking wisdom, is that we can gain it our whole life, and we can gain it daily. Sometimes I gain new insights to wisdom that I had previously gained.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all part of that growth process. And again, as I like to say, beginning to see more of life from God's perspective. Because when we do that, we see everything differently, and especially see things outside of me.
Yeah.
One of our struggles is, well, what's in it for me? What does it mean to me? And the more I grow, the more I realize that is on so many levels not the best perspective. It is actually a detriment to my growing and functioning. One of the things I share with people is that we are each very uniquely designed, but we also have some common shared design. And one of those is helping people.
That's right.
Part of what God designed all of us to do is to help people. We're supposed to, it doesn't mean we have to be a professor, a teacher, or whatever in a formal sense, but we have to be willing to share out of our lives in the ways that we have been comforted and received help and so on, and then turn around and do the same for others. Welcome, Karen. Karen's one of our regulars on the program. And then Amelia from Florida, I believe it is. So welcome. Just a reminder, everyone that's watching, that feel free to type questions, comments in the comments area. And I'll warn you that Mike's going to have to hop off here shortly. So if you have a question for Mike, it's a good opportunity. So pop it in there and be quick, because I'd hate for you to miss the opportunity. So, I know, Mike, how much longer before you need to head out?
I am good. I've got to get off right around 8:50 to host a Zoom call at right around 9 o'clock. Get off and get prepped for the next Zoom call. Yep.
So 6 or 7 minutes or so. Okay, good. So we can continue chasing a little bit. So what has, for you, what's been some of the harder wisdom to gain in your life?
Yeah. The wisdom I didn't want. How about that? there's a lot of things I would rather not know.
Right.
Sometimes adversity is our greatest teacher, and critics are great teachers. And there's wisdom to be gained from both, and we hate both of them. Because we always want to speed up adversity, and we always want to ignore and move along from criticism. And there's something to be learned in both. And so I would say through my years that we've all walked through those seasons and those tough times. We don't like them, but man, we are who we are today because of them. And so I think keeping that openness to go, if I can always learn something from someone, I can always learn something from what I've gone through. And we never get through what we're going through for no reason. We get through it to help somebody else. And so maybe there's something I learned in that season that wasn't for me, but it was to bless somebody else. And so if I think of it that way, it helps me get through it a little bit better and still hate it. I mean, none of us like it, but it's interesting, in the Bible, James says to count it all joy when we face trials and persecutions of various kinds, right? Multicolored trials, because there's always something to learn, and it gives us sticking power. We're able to get through it. And then critics, sometimes there's a nugget of truth in what they said. And if we'll let our defenses down, we can learn from it. But it isn't what you want to hear. We want everybody to like us, and not everybody likes us,
Right. There is, and that's a big struggle for people that are on social media. When you start getting, as the current vernacular for that is getting trolled. Somebody comes in and they're unduly critical, or their way of presenting something is harsh or nasty. But like you said, if our goal is to gain wisdom, then we even in those situations, there is something that we can walk away with if we are, as we talked about earlier, intentional about it. Welcome, Scott. Glad to have you on. Scott's one of my regulars. He's over in Alabama. He's one of my neighbors. So, it's really a challenge. You mentioned James 1. It's one of my favorite passages. I'm currently serving in our state guard, and in the military, we have a version of that concept. It's a little less flowery, if you will, but anyway, the concept is you embrace the suck. When you're tired, when your muscles are hurting, but you've got to continue on. You don't resist it. You embrace it and say, yeah, this is part of who we are. And the more I can embrace it rather than resist it, then I'm in a better spot to gain what I need to from it. And just want to remind folks that feel free to throw out questions, comments. And so, all right, any parting thoughts on how the folks that have joined us can go about being intentional to gain wisdom?
Yeah, I would say get up every day and learn something. So if we have a goal every day to learn something new, so I believe it was Seth Godin said, you never become an expert in anything till you do it for 10,000 hours. So if that's true, there's always something that you can gain, not only in the field that you're in, whatever that may be, but, in life. So if I want to be a great dad or a great husband or a great boss, whatever the role is we've been given, every day seek to gain something that will make you better at one of those things. If you do that, you become a wisdom seeker and you become somebody that goes, I know I don't know, which keeps you humble. So the ability to admit you don't know everything is everything. And being a wisdom seeker keeps you humble because you're going, I don't know what I don't know, but I want to. I want to grow. So I think that would be number one, every day seek that. Number two, always perfect the art of asking great questions and try it. Try it today at lunch break, man. You're sitting around with some coworkers and man, maybe one of them you see as a great parent and you ask them, what have you done? What do you think about every day when you're parenting your kids? I don't have kids yet, but I want to be a great parent one day. What's something? And man, they may throw out something that is life-changing for you. And I say the third, and you and I have this common thing. I believe God left the Bible as his timeless wisdom. It's not swayed by social media. It's not swayed by politics or this culture or that culture. It is unchanging. It is spot on. I was teaching the book of Proverbs last night to a group of high school coaches and their spouses, and man, it's like it was written yesterday. And so it's timeless. And I know that 20 years from now, 200 years from now, it's as good as it was today. So that for me is the foundational piece of it in my life. But those would be my challenges.
Okay. As we wrap up, a couple of books, favorite books that you have found. Obviously, the Bible, we got that. But aside from that, a couple of books you would suggest that people might tap into to gain some wisdom.
So I would say the best book on leadership I've ever read is a book called Spiritual Leadership by Henry and Richard Blackaby. It is a classic. It combines the best of all the all the leadership stuff that's been written out there, and it really puts it into one. There's a second book, and we were talking about adversity. It's called Leadership Pain by Dr. Sam Chand, Chand. It is a must read for anybody that leads organization, because we all face leadership pain. And Sam says something in the book. He says, we only grow to the threshold of our pain. So whatever our pain tolerance level is, will level us out as leaders. But the greater your ability to accept pain, the greater your ability to grow. So it's a really great concept. There's another great book by a friend of mine named Dan Reiland, Reiland, called The Confident Leader. And it is another just leadership classic on some great characters from scripture, but how they led. And man, those are three. I'm a voracious reader, a voracious reader. And so I love reading. Those are three that I've gone through in the past year that have just added a lot of value to my life.
Sure. Well, that's great to share, because again, people that are truly wanting to learn every day and gain wisdom, reading is a good opportunity to do that. So, well, I know you need to run. Any other parting comment for the audience?
If I can ever add value to you, I'm on Twitter at Mike Lynch, Linch, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I have a podcast, Lynch, Linch, Lynch with a Leader, where I sit down. I sit down with some of America's greatest leaders and find out how they lead with their faith out in front. And so you can go to Lynch with a Leader on any podcast app. But anyway, I can ever add value. Honored to do it. And honored to connect anyway. Kevin, thank you for having me on, and thanks for doing what you're doing, buddy.
Well, God bless, and I appreciate you being here, and hope that your next podcast effort goes well and blesses others like you have us today. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, buddy.
Appreciate it. Take
All
care.
righty. Bye-bye.
Okay, so good friend, Mike, and like I said, former pastor, and he is actually still my mom's current pastor. She's still at the church that she and my dad were part of starting. So interesting to gain insight into other people's journey as we go along. But what's real interesting is that there are some core principles that are out there, and a couple of them that I thought was really insightful and encouraging is the idea of approaching each day with the intent to learn something new. And that's something I've always done. And what I learn may or may not be a big deal. It may just be some little fact about something that I was not aware of. Other times it can be something that becomes a game changer in my life, a new way of doing or looking at something. And so, yeah, there's that's a part of being a wisdom seeker. And what I really hope is that as we go along, that all of you become more adept at being a wisdom seeker, and that part of that is just making it a priority. We can go through life, we can work, we can make money, get things, but at the end of the day, if we lack wisdom and in our life, then those things will quickly grow or become stale. They'll become unimportant because those aren't life. And Mike talked about adversity and then about reaching our pain point. One of the things that we talk about regularly is getting beyond our comfort zone. And that's another way of talking about what he shared, is being able to go beyond our comfort zone into a little bit of pain. Depends on the situation. And I will offer to you that it's a value for example, for even me, tell a story on myself. When I first got on LinkedIn, the video aspect wasn't a big deal, but in my vocation, there were times that I had to be on camera for various reasons, and it is one of the most uncomfortable situations, or was, for me, because it's just not my thing. I'm not a stand-up comedian or any of that, being on stage. But what it helped me to do is, as I pushed beyond my discomfort in being in front of a camera, I have grown into understanding it's part of who I am and what I need to be about. For example, doing this podcast. Another example is speaking. It's really funny because in social settings, I am an introvert more so than anything, and will generally be found on the periphery, quiet, observing, watching. But yet, when I am given the opportunity to speak to a group about leadership or education, workforce, any of the different areas that I'm really have a passion about, the fear is minimized. It's never gone, because in fact, I think if it was ever felt like it was gone, it would be unhealthy. But for me, pushing beyond that pain point, that discomfort, including on LinkedIn, the first time I ever made a video, it took me probably 2 to 3 months to build up the, I don't know, determination, whatever, to even make that first video. And it's for a lot of reasons. But I had a LinkedIn friend, and actually he's a live person friend, Judd Borico, finally said, look, don't just get so caught up in trying to make this perfect. Don't get so caught up in worrying about what people think. Just take a step and create it, and then immediately post it. So make that commitment to taking that step, and take the step, and then see what happens. And that's what it finally took for me to begin to overcome this uneasiness about being in front of the camera. And in fact, that that I can sit here and I'm not sweating profusely is remarkable, because one of the first times that I was in my teaching role, had to get in front of a camera in a real studio. They actually had us, they got us prepped, and with a mug like mine, they definitely had to do a little makeup on me. Well, the funny part of that experience was that I was so uneasy in that situation that the young lady that was the makeup artist had to stay in the studio while we were in there, because at every break that we took and got off camera, she had to come over and mop sweat off of me, because it made me that uneasy. So the opportunity to grow and to gain wisdom quite often is going to be found in stepping outside of our comfort zone, feeling a little bit of pain. It doesn't mean that you've got to make yourself completely miserable. It may be that it's not something in your design, but you need to have taken the time to find that out. But if it's partly within your design, or it's a way to help move forward in your vision and your life, then consider taking that step to get outside there and get a bit uncomfortable. So, well, I appreciate everyone that has joined today. Hope that you gained some insight and perspective, and some wisdom, and ways to even seek wisdom from my friend Mike Lynch. And hope that you will take away today something to carry you into the week. as always, join us next Monday. We'll be back. And next Monday, I will have a special guest, and we'll enjoy gaining from their wisdom journey. And then also wanted to let you know that I've got another guest coming along later in I believe that it's on the 26th. Somebody that a lot of you know on LinkedIn, Dr. I is one that talks about education, her experience. So we share a passion. She'll be joining us live. So some real great opportunities, and I'll be having some more, looking for more people that want to come on and be part of the live podcast. So thank you again. Be watching for information, by the way, about the course on reaching your potential. I will be doing another poll coming up related to that, because at the end of the day, this course is not about me, but it's about helping you all, and I will grow in the process, but helping as many people as possible begin to understand, find, and take steps to move forward in reaching your potential. So God bless. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. I encourage you, please bring some folks along and join us. You don't have to have an invite from me to be a part, and always appreciate it. So take care, everyone, and we will see you next Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Thank you.